So you decided to take the decoupling route. Both you and your spouse is able to take the mortgage loan. What do you really need to consider? All right. So what is decoupling and how does it work? Basically, decoupling means it's a fractional purchase, or we are selling and buying each other's share. That's what it means. So in short, in layman terms, you are transferring the ownership of property A and B to just A. That means A buy over from B. And this will help you to free up ABSD as well. The criteria here is that A must be able to take over the loan of the existing property. And the costs involved are legal fees up to 5,500 or around 5,500, because selling in terms of the one that's exiting will pay about $3,000 legal fee when they sell. The one that buy over will pay about 2,500 legal fee. There's also stamp duties payable for half the value share that you're buying over as well. The cost saving here is 20% on your additional buyer stamp duty if you were to decouple. Over here, I want to share with you a case study, and this is where we go down into numbers and also profiling so that you are able to see it the way most of us see it as an investor too. So example here will be Mr. and Mrs. holding on to an existing property right now. So Mr. is 51 years old, draws a salary of $10,000 a month, and he has a $900 liability for his car installment per month. Existingly, his CPF has a $150,000 OA balance. And Mrs. is 43 years old, draws a salary of $8,000 per month, zero liabilities, and his ordinary account has $110,000. So let's say they both own a $1.5 million property valuation, and they have an outstanding loan of $700,000. And both of them own 50-50 share of this property. So they own a fair share. So the outstanding loan will also be split into 50% each, which means $350,000 each person would owe to the bank right now, because this is 50% to 50% shareholding. So imagine if Mr. is going to stay in the property. That means he's going to buy his wife out. Okay, how would that look like? Mr. can actually, based on his existing loan, do a repricing. So how does repricing work? Repricing work based on you can actually borrow up to 75 minus your age. So even though he's 51 years old, he can actually reprice the loan up to 24 years old because he's up to 75. And because of that, the monthly installment actually dropped to 1,004 based on his share. But this is just his existing share because he has to buy over the next share, right? So the next share, he will take 75% on 750,000 because that's 50% of 1.5, and the loan size will be 562,000. But because this is a new purchase, he's buying over the share, he can only borrow 65 minus his age, and that will mean 65 minus 51, that is a 14 years tenure. And because of this, his monthly installment for 562,000 loan size right now is $3,700 per month. So the total loan he's taking will be 350, which is the existing loan, plus the new loan of buying over, 917,000 in total. And his monthly installment right now, after decoupling is complete, he has to pay an installment of 5,100 a month. This 5,100 is derived from this 1,004 and this 3,007. Okay, so that's if Mr. were to take over. But what if not the Mr. take over, but Mrs. take over, the wife take over? How would that look like? So the wife is 43 years old, as you learned. And if the wife were to take over the existing 350,000 loan, he can actually borrow up to 75 minus his age, right? Her age, right? Because this is a repricing. And 75 minus 43 is actually 32 years. And because of that, the loan has actually dropped down to 1,448 comparing to 1,004 to the husband. And when it comes to buying over the husband's share, she can actually borrow 65 minus 43, and that will work out to be a 22 years loan tenure. And the loan size are the same as well, 562,000, and this works out to be 2,005. So the total obligation for Mrs. if she were to take over the existing $1.5 million property instead of the husband take over would be an obligation of 3,648. All right, so there's 1,148 and 2,005. So my question to you here is that who should actually take over the property? Should be the hubby or the wife? If you think it's hubby, you type H. If you think it's the wife, you type W, so that we have some consensus here whether we are seeing things correctly. Okay, Jennifer says that it's a good decision 3 and wife should take over. Okay, so Chen says wife should take over. And Jenny says wife should take over. Okay, and KL says husband should take over. Okay, so we at least have one that says husband take over. Most of you says wife should take over, right? Okay. So one of the reasons that people say wife should take over, because why? Because they want to make the wife feel more secure lah. Okay, and Yixing says that depends on the next purchase. Absolutely, you're right. Okay. So right now we decouple for what? To buy the next property, right? So let's say if we decouple successfully already, and then we go and buy the next property at 956,000 here. Let's say the wife were to take over, which is where we last left off at 3,648. Then the husband is free, right? So right now the husband go and buy the next property at 956,000. And because it's a new property, he can only take 14 years loan. And 75% loan size of 956,000 is actually 717,000. And because of the 14 years tenure, right now he has to pay $7,700 per month for the new property. Doesn't quite make sense, right? Buy a 956,000 property, a one bedder. Right now you are paying $7,700 a month. How are you gonna make passive income from this property? Okay, likely not. We then go into what if the wife were the one that actually buy the new property instead. So if the wife were to buy the new property, she can actually borrow 22 years. And because of that extra 8 years, the monthly installment actually dropped down to 3,190 per month. And the loan size didn't change. So the question right now is actually, if you look at it, which option is better? Option A, where the husband take over the existing property, but then the wife buy the next property, or the wife take over existing property and then the husband buy the next property. Is it option A or is it option B? Guys, so those of you who have said wife just now, right now you are rethinking already, right? Okay. Actually, the husband is the one that should be taking over. Sounds like a mathematical problem I'm doing with you guys, right? So it's not just about the decoupling, because if you do not know your next purchase, you ended up doing the wrong thing and end up paying more for the investment property that doesn't even give you the return that you are looking at. Am I correct, guys? A is what we should be looking at, and all of you here right now is able to see it, because the total output for owning two properties right now actually pay close to about $3,000 lesser in terms of monthly commitment. This is something a lot more complex because there are many layers involved here, and if you do not have a very skilled consultant or advisor to guide you, you may be doing decoupling and then end up with the wrong funds to make the wrong purchase. Yes, higher income tax as well for sure. Okay, so you want to make sure that you don't want to have wrong structuring that make you buy the wrong thing. So this is effectively, if you talk about cost saving here, another ABSD saving of 191,000 instead of just buying straight like that. Beyond that, we also want to debunk the myth that many people say that, I don't think about all this structuring, is so complicated. Just do 99.1% first lah. Then we then think about it later when it's only necessary. Okay, and this has made many of those owners that actually wanted to do a decoupling get stuck. So what I mean by that is that you learn just now how the whole framework of decoupling works. And imagine if you own 1% of the share and the property right now is worth 1.5 million based on the example just now that we showed. But the 1% share actually owns, or rather put in a CPF amount of 300,000. And because of that, he probably put in 20% of the property value, which is 1.5 million right now. He put in 300,000 as CPF. But the thing here is that if he wants to exit his 1%, he only owns 1% of the property. He actually only owns $15,000 of the property, right? And how are you going to buy that 1% out, especially when he has 300,000 that is used for his CPF? Because CPF follows you wherever you go. So if you want to exit, make sure your 300,000 goes with you, not just paying 15,000 and then you think that the person can exit, right? So I want to share with you here is that this is where we need to make sure that if you are using the 1%, make sure you don't touch so much of your CPF into the property when you first purchase. Because if not, based on the illustration I just shared with you, the one that is buying over your share, the one that's holding 99%, has to come out 300,000 cash just to buy you out so that decoupling can happen. And not many people can do that and then still buy another property later on, right? So with that, don't let it sit on it when you're buying a property and then just say do 99.1% first without knowing that, hey, the 1% is going to come out most of the CPF money when it comes to down payment. Instead, we want to overcome this by using this strategy called 70% and 30% shareholdings. So how this 70-30 works? Basically, in a 70-30, purchasing party, which is the one that is buying over the existing share, is able to use significant amount of their CPF to finance the 30% they're going to take over. So let's say his CPF stake has about maybe 200,000 and he wants to pay over the 300,000, he can effectively use 200,000 to buy over. But if it's a 99 one, he can't use his CPF. Why? Because CPF can only use up to the percentage of value you own to the property when you're buying over. So what it means is that if it's 99 one, the share that the 1% own on a 1.5 million property is only 15,000. So if you want to use 200,000 CPF to go and pay that 300, you can't, because actually you can only use 15,000 because that's 1%. So that's it. Be very careful about this, right? And also, the one that is selling, the one that is exiting, is also able to sell without restricting their CPF usage when they first purchase the property too. So not because you own 1%, then you have a lot of CPF, then you don't use. That will also require a lot of cash down payment as well, right? Okay, so you want to make sure that if you do a 70-30, the one that use a lot of CPF holding 30% can also be using a lump sum of their CPF as well, because when the 70% take over, he's able to buy you out with a loan. So it's a good tool to also get additional loan as well, not just using your existing cash money. 99 and 1% criteria to make that happen is, again, 70-30% shareholding, okay, is that 99 and 1% is the first priority that we always use, because it reduces most of the stamp duty payable when you sell each other's share to one another. And 99 and 1% shareholding will also allow you to exit within 3 years after you have fully taken over the properties as well, because the seller stamp duty for the 1% actually restart from the point that you buy over the 1%. But because the 1% is so little, you are not affected. So the criteria to take over is that the 1% shareholder CPF usage will need to be paid back by cash by the 99 stakeholders during the exit, all right, for it to be doable. And for the 99% shareholder must be capable of refinancing the entire loan individually to make this buy over possible. So for the 70-30, all right, and this is really, really important, the purchasing party is able to use significant amount of their CPF to buy over the existing share. And also less cash is required, because when you buy over, you could actually take a loan, or if not, use more equities that is part of your CPF and cash right now set aside for the next purchase. Because you take a loan, you could actually spare those money that is to pay each other right now to buy for the next property. With that, you know that 70-30 is 70-30 to avoid paying more duties. You have to sell after 3 years, because you do this within that 3 years window, you'll be taxed based on 30% of your buy over share, because this 30% is right now restarting the seller stamp duty date as well. So you do not have the flexibility as those who do 99-1, because they are 1%. It's small amount, right? It's not detrimental at all if they were to sell within 3 years and subjected to SSD. But if you are doing the 30%, okay, and you restart your seller stamp duty, make sure that the property that you are decoupling and holding on to are going to hold beyond the 3 years mark.